buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Yeah, baby. Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the program. It is the Michael Dukes Show, the Tuesday edition of the show. Just another beautiful day here in paradise as we continue to cruise on through the summer. Last couple days here of July, and it's been a beaut. It's been absolute gorgeous here down on the peninsula. I hope it's nice wherever you've been as well, enjoying some summertime stuff and getting ready to do it. Tuesday means that today we are jumping on board with Bard Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, and we're going to go over what we like to call the weekly top three. Three big stories where Brad comes in and lays down some truth bombs on us. And sometimes that's painful. It's always educational. That's the thing. Always educational. Sometimes not always pleasant. But that's how we work around here. Chris Story will be joining us in hour 2, and he'll be giving us some positivity, some life coaching and more. That'll be fun. In the middle there, somewhere along the lines, I'll give you some of my thoughts on some of the stuff that's happening and on some of the stuff that we discuss here in hour 1 with Brad. That's how it's gonna roll, man. It's good stuff. So without further ado, let's jump into it and get with it. Bard Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, joins us this morning for discussions, topics, and more. Hello, Brad. How you doing, my friend?
Michael, I'm doing great today. I can't believe it's almost the 1st of August, though.
I know, man. At the time, just like feel like I'm on a bullet train somewhere to I don't know where, but it's fun stuff. Yeah, it's kind of crazy out there for sure. All right, Brad. Well, we got some great topics today. Let's dive into it and get started. We're going to start off with the weekly top 3. Topic number 1. It seems like some legislators just don't seem to understand how oil taxes work. Again, you've been on this topic for a while, but it just still seems like nobody's listening. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means, kind of thing. Let's get started here on this.
Well, maybe repetition will help. That's why it keeps popping up occasionally and in the top 3. This segment was triggered by an op-ed that House Minority Leader Mia Costello wrote in this week's ADN, and I'm sure it will appear in other publications. I think I saw it in Must Read somewhere along the way also. The title of it is Alaska Has the Chance to Seize Prosperity with the Big Beautiful Bill. And it talks about various things that the federal One Big Beautiful Act accomplishes with respect to Alaska, particularly focusing on opening up NPRA, additional leasing in NPRA and in ANWR on the North Slope, and the potential that brings for oil development. The thing that, if I had a magic wand that I could get all 60 legislators and the governor to understand is it is good that we will have additional production that results in jobs, that results in additional development. It lowers the costs of taps because more volume through taps lowers the per unit cost of taps. It opens up new potential for discovering additional fields up on the slope. So that's all good. But the thing that people are overlooking is that it hurts state revenues in not only in the near term, but as we're discovering this decade and seeing the impact that SB 21 is having in the current decade, in the environment of the current decade, not only in the near term, but also in the medium term, and perhaps in the long term, depending upon how long this goes on for. And the reason it hurts state revenues is because two factors. One, there is no state royalty from federal lands. Now, I understand that as part of the One Big Beautiful Act, Representative Begich got a provision that increases royalty sharing from NPRA and increases royalty sharing from ANWR. But the royalty sharing from NPRA is still subject to the local preference. That is, the royalties, even though it's increased, the royalties are still subject to the federal law that requires that they be spent on the slope, with slope communities, local communities on the slope. And so the fact that royalties will increase at some point, and it's something like 7 years down the line that this increase kicks in, the fact that royalties increase doesn't help state revenues, certainly in the near term, because it doesn't kick in for a while, or the immediate, or depending upon how you define it, the intermediate term, because it still doesn't kick in for 7 years or so. But even when it kicks in, those royalties are going to be subject to the local preference rule. And so, at least from NPRA, the state isn't going to benefit from any federal royalties. We're going to continue to, from a royalty standpoint, continue to have state royalties. And as the 10-year forecast points out, those remain flat. Those state royalties remain flat. We're from a state standpoint, we're replacing the declining production curve, but we're not adding to it. And so over the course of the 10-year period that's in the current DOR projection, state revenues from state royalties, revenue from royalties stays relatively flat over that period. We don't get any from the federal lands. The second thing is that the additional drilling, the additional spending that goes on, and the development of new volumes combine to result in a decline in production taxes. We went over this last week, but production taxes hit a low in the late point of the projection period. Production taxes historically been $1 billion or so, plus or minus. They hit a low of 220 million in the late part of the current 10-year forecast period. They sort of bumped back up to 400 million the last couple of years, but that's still less than half than what they were in 2024. So this additional development that everybody's excited about, legitimately so, but this additional development that everybody's excited about isn't a prosperity for state revenue standpoint. It is in fact a hit to state revenues. Now, the legislature can get out in front of that and can readjust oil taxes. I mean, we readjusted oil taxes in 2013 because they were overtaking from producers,
right,
and disincentivizing incentive in the state. Now we've got a situation where we are undertaking from producers, and we're hurting the state by doing that. So state revenues by doing that. And so the state legislature can get out in front of that and make some adjustments to the way that SB 21 works by making some changes that amortize the impact of additional investments over an extended period, make sure that the state realizes additional production tax revenues as we have additional production coming on. But the legislature can do that, but the legislature hasn't yet done that. So the way SB 21 is operating, it's reducing production tax revenues over the projection period. Here's the key to that. It's not like we're going to be reducing state spending proportionately to that reduction in revenues. Not even the Republicans have come up with proposals on how you would reduce state spending in the same fashion that revenues are going down. So what we're doing by not addressing production taxes, not addressing that hit that comes from additional development, is we're going to increase the burden on personal taxes. We're going to continue to take heavily from the PFD until perhaps it's gone, and then we're going to kick over into other personal taxes. So the legislators who are saying, yay, OBBA opens things up, it's going to be happy days are here again. They're not understanding, I don't think, they're not understanding what that influx of investment, that influx of spending dollars in the oil industry, that influx of new volumes, which are subject to a lower tax rate under SB 21, they're not understanding what that's going to do to state revenues, that it's not, state revenues from production tax don't even hold steady. They go down because of the way that those additional spending is going to affect SB 20 is going to affect production taxes. So it's that, and the consequence of that is increased. I mean, what they're essentially cheering for is increased personal taxes, because that's what's going to have to happen in order to fill the gap that's created by the declining oil taxes. So I think legislators who are getting out there and cheering OBBA, I understand why they're doing it. I understand that the industry certainly is encouraging them to do it, and the industry certainly saying, well, this will be good. We get additional leases in MPRA. We can develop step outs in MPRA. We can get additional volumes out of MPRA. And I understand what they're hearing from the producers in that regard, but they need to understand what's going on with oil taxes. They need to understand in particular what's going on in with production taxes. And they need to understand that all of this additional development is creating a situation in which production taxes will continue to decline, which boomerangs back on the need for additional personal taxes.
I think it's interesting in reading the article, reading the opinion piece. I mean, in nowhere there does she talk about new revenues or anything else. It seems like all the talk around this is very aspirational, right? I mean, look at all the great things that are going to come because of this. And you pointed them out: new building, new growth, new job employment, things like that. But again, it's not the cure-all. I think a lot of them are looking at it as if this will be the cure-all. This specific article doesn't talk about revenues, but we've seen others that say, look at all the money that'll be flowing into the state, when the answer is there's not, because of all the reasons you just outlined. And so I don't know why they keep going back to this and banging on that drum specifically. I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong. This is good stuff, but it's not the solution that they keep seeming to point towards.
Well, yeah, she doesn't talk about revenues, but she doesn't talk about state revenues, but she also doesn't talk about the adverse impact, the negative impact on state revenues. I mean, it's almost as if state revenues sort of remain neutral, or it'll be good because generally good, but it's not. I mean, the way SB 21 was set up was to restart investment in Alaska, and people came up with various ideas. One was to allow the immediate deductibility of capital costs instead of the amortization, the immediate deductibility of capital costs. Another was what's called GVR, gross value reduction, which is to charge, to have a lower tax rate on new production as opposed to old production. And so as new production replaces old production, the production tax goes down, assuming the volumes are equal. The production tax goes down because you're replacing with new volumes, you're replacing the old production at lower tax rates than the old production had. And then we've got the per barrel credits that sort of kick in the late part of the period and start impacting taxes as well. All of that was to get investment. Okay, we attracted a bunch of investment. We're attracting with the opening of MPRA and the potential opening of ANWR, you're attracting more investment. Yay, that's good. But the way that SB 21's set up is all of these three incentives that various people threw out at various times that got stacked in there. The cumulative impact of those incentives is to drive revenues from production tax down during high investment periods, high spending periods. And that was, we saw some of that in the last decade, but it wasn't to the degree that we're seeing it in this decade. And so what you have is a situation in which production taxes are going up, or production volumes are going up. something like 40% overall, with the projected kick in from the NPRA volumes going up something like 40%, but production taxes, revenues from production taxes, going down something like 55%. And that hole that's being created by the production taxes going down is going to have to be filled from someplace. And it's been filled over the last few years by PFD cuts.
So your overall solution to this is a refactoring of the tax of this SB 21 to account for some of this.
Yeah, we've got to go back into SB 21 and fulfill its promise. The promise of SB 21 was the state would sort of bide its time while some investment was made, and then investment would result in additional production, and that additional production, the assumption was the additional production would result in additional revenues to the state. But it's not happening. The reason it's not happening is in part because the additional production is coming from federal lands where we get no royalties, and the additional production is coming with costs that are driving down production taxes. So we need to go back into SB 21 and rejigger it to fulfill the promise of as production increases, revenues to the state increase as well.
Bard Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, the weekly top 3 continue. We'll be back. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Number 2 is dead ahead.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Bard Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, joins us, and we're going to continue here in just a second here with him and the weekly top 3. Meanwhile, Kim says, Brad is a Debbie Downer this morning. No, it's just the truth. I mean, that's the thing. Look, I mean, I can understand being excited about opening and exploring ANWR and NPRA. Those do bring some positives, but they also bring with them some negatives. And it's not so much that Mia in this article is talking about how the state's going to be rolling in dough or anything is like that. But again, by avoiding the problem with it and acknowledging that there is an issue, we're exacerbating it. We're going to cause, it'll be 4 years from now, and somebody will say, how come we're not making all this money? We're pumping all this oil. How come we're not making all this money? And it's because nobody looked at the downside of it and said, well, maybe something should change. Because again, historically, if you look at the who's on whose side, the Republicans have always been defensive of the oil industries in that regard, which, I mean, I could see they're the goose that lays the golden egg in the state. But sometimes if you're going to do, to continue the analogy, if you're going to do animal husbandry, sometimes you have to do things that are not pleasant for the goose, to make sure that it stays warm and fat and dry and happy. And this might be one of those times, Brad.
Yeah, I think the thing that triggered me, Michael, on this was the title, Alaska has the chance to seize prosperity. Well, we're not going to seize prosperity if the consequence of this is we have to increase individual taxes, personal taxes, in order to make up for the additional hole that's being created out of production tax declines. That's going to be, rather than seizing prosperity, it's going to be seizing problems for the state and problems for the citizens of the state, particularly if we continue to have a personal tax structure as we do with PFD cuts that take money only from Alaskans, don't have any sort of the contribution coming from non-residents. So you're going to have non-residents coming in. I mean, just picture this. You're going to have non-residents coming in, working on the additional oil field development, working on the additional activities that are going on, taking a significant share of the benefits of that in terms of jobs and in terms of wages for non-residents. They're not contributing to the solution under the current tax structure. The production taxes, which are supposed to benefit Alaskans, are in decline because of the way SB 21 is operating through this period. And so only Alaskans, by using PFD cuts, only Alaskans are making up this hole. The non-residents are fat, dumb, and happy. They get additional jobs. They take their paychecks. They go home, don't make any contributions to the state revenue. And Alaskans are having to make up the hole that's being created by the decline in production taxes. So I think that's not prosperity. That is additional problems from a state fiscal standpoint. And so I think the thing Mia doesn't talk about revenues to the state, but when she uses the words seize prosperity, it's only prosperity for a few, the way SB 21 operates. For the state as a whole, and for the citizens of the state who are going to have to fill in this hole being created by declining production taxes, it's not prosperity. It is additional burden that this is going to create, and we don't get royalty out of it either. So it's additional burden that's being created by the additional development. I'm not saying the additional development is bad. I'm not saying we ought not to do the additional development, but we need to structure SB 21 just like we did back in the early 2010s when we had a problem with oil taxes. It was driving investment away from Alaska. People were investing other places instead of Alaska. Just as we did in the early 2010s, we need to recognize the problem for what it is and come in and develop the solution to it. And so Alaskans can share in this prosperity in terms of reducing the burden of personal taxes. Instead of increasing the burden of personal taxes, reducing the burden of personal taxes on Alaska families.
And that's where the pushback's going to come. The same legislators that are touting the prosperity of it are going to push back on any kind of change to SB 21 because, again, they fear killing the golden goose, because that's the first thing that the oil companies say is, well, we'll just take our bat and ball and go somewhere else.
No, it's different circumstances now in the industry as a whole, different circumstances in Alaska than in the early 2010s. We needed to correct ACEs. ACEs had gone way the hell too far,
right,
in terms of taking a share. There is space, and we've talked about on the show, 500 to 600 million. There is space in what's going on in the oil industry to correct taxes without driving investment away. But we need to take it, or else that burden of declining taxes, production taxes, is going to fall back on Alaska personal taxes.
Bard Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. The weekly top 3 continues. The Michael Duke Show. Welcome back to the show and program. Number 2, Brad, number 2 of the weekly top 3. And that is apparently Shelley Hughes. She's thrown her hat in the ring. She makes number 7 of, I guess, potentially 9 is what we're looking at right now. You say Shelley Hughes has a ready-made fiscal platform. The question is, will she use it? What do you mean?
Okay, so you and I often go back on the show and discuss the 2021 Legislative Fiscal Policy Working Group recommendations and sort of use those as a template for how we need to address our fiscal situation. It's sort of the all-in approach, right? A little bit of spending cuts, some restructuring of the PFD to go to POMV 50/50, some new revenues, a constitutional a change in the spending cap to be effective, constitutionalization of the PFD. There's a list of things in the 2021 Legislative Fiscal Policy Working Group recommendations that I thought were outstanding and form the basis of trying to get our fiscal house in order. It's not just the 2021 Fiscal Policy Working Group. You can find the same sort of thread back in Governor Dunleavy's fiscal year 2019, I think it was 2020, maybe it was 2020, 10-year forecast. You can find the thread of this sort of all-in approach, a little bit from everything, a little bit of oil taxes, a little bit from everything to get the fiscal policy back in shape. Shelley Hughes has a perfect opportunity. I mean, Shelley's theme so far in her announcement has been she can bring people together, she can work out solutions. She's a combiner, she's a consensus builder, she's a policy maker in the sense of getting everybody in a room and working on it. Shelley Hughes was a key component of the Fiscal Policy Working Group. There were 2 from the Senate, 2 from each body, with alternates. The 2 from the Senate were Lyman Hoffman, and 2 from the majority, 2 from the minority. The 2 from the Senate were Senate majority at the time were Lyman Hoffman and Shelley Hughes. Shelley was part of building that consensus, that sort of all-in approach. And I think that gives her a leg up in the campaign. I think she can point to the Fiscal Policy Working Group as an example of where she has participated and where she was helped. She helped shape a consensus agenda, a consensus body of recommendations to go forward on fiscal policy. And I think she can show that I think she can use it to demonstrate that she has some history with working on fiscal policy solutions. And as governor, Dunleavy never picked this up, but as governor, she would pick it up and she would push it as an agenda for solving the fiscal situation. And I think during the campaign, people are going to realize that we need a solution to our fiscal situation going forward, that we need to get Alaska's fiscal house in order, particularly when you look at the 10-year forecast and you look at the deficits that don't quit over the period. And you look at things like declining production tax revenues and increasing personal taxes as a result of declining revenues from other sources. And people, look at spending patterns and see, potential for spending increases and worry about having an effective cap on that. So I think this is a perfect, frankly, fiscal platform for Shelley and others. I mean, I think other candidates ought to adopt it as well, but I think Shelley, as a member of the Fiscal Policy Working Group, has a leg up on being able to use that as one of the centerpieces of her campaign. I was surprised, to be honest, in her announcement that she didn't use it in that way. To my understanding, I read everything about her announcement. She didn't mention the Fiscal Policy Working Group at all. She mentioned pieces of it. One piece was using POMV 50/50, which essentially shares inflation proofing between the two, between the PFD part and the portion that goes to government. She mentioned pieces of it, but she didn't mention as an example of how she in the past has helped bring things together, or as a centerpiece of her fiscal policy. I think it's sort of sitting there and an opportunity for her, and hopefully she will use it, because I think that has the potential to drive the discussion about fiscal policy in the campaign. Candidates who endorse it, who talk about fiscal policy and talk about that solution, the all-in solution as a centerpiece, I think are positioned then when elected to the new legislature, are elected to become part of the group that works that through the legislature and gets it to the governor. And I think candidates ought to be endorsing and supporting the Fiscal Policy Working Group recommendations. But I think Shelley has the opportunity not only to use it to propel her campaign, but also to use it to bring a focused discussion around fiscal policy and around these solutions as part of everybody's campaign, as part of the overall election cycle. So I encourage her to do it. I encourage other candidates to do it as well. But because she was part of it, because she was a member of the working group, because she spent time and contributed heavily to the recommendations, I think, and spoke about them highly afterwards. I think it's something that she can take the lead on. That frankly, there are no other candidates currently in the election cycle who can position themselves in the same way.
Well, so far from what I've seen, no other candidates, including Bernadette Wilson, who's been on the program. I asked her about the fiscal policy, and she didn't really have any knowledge of it. Shelley's got the intimate knowledge; she was part of it, but none of the candidates are really talking about the long-term fiscal concerns of the state. Much of it, I used the word a little bit ago, is very aspirational. Right. It's very, we're going to kumbaya. We're going to come together. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Or even if it's more strident, like Wilson's comments, there's really no there doesn't seem to be a long-term fiscal answer to the problems that are facing the state. And again, as you look at the 10-year forecast, you understand very precarious position if we don't do something now on that 10-year forecast.
Yeah, I think we're going to come back to that. I mean, the timing of this is we'll hit the next legislative session. We'll realize again that oil prices are down, and we'll realize again that Alaska is in a difficult spot. When you look at the 10-year forecast that DOR is going to publish next year, is going to be probably even worse as they factor in the additional the additional spending that's going to go on in the oil industry and the impact that's going to have, the follow-on impact that's going to have on production taxes. The 10-year forecast next year is probably even going to be worse. I don't see the circumstances under which it's going to look better than the most recent 10-year forecast. So I think next year's legislative session is going to help gel, focus on fiscal policy again. And then, the question is who's positioned themselves, or who can position themselves to get a leg up on that during the election cycle. And I think it's going to be people who have thought through the issues, see that the all-in solution proposed by the Fiscal Policy Working Group has the best chance of bringing everybody together in a legislative session. Because, you recall the Fiscal Policy Working Group had members of both bodies, had members of both the majority and the minority at the time, had right-leaning Republicans, had left-leaning Democrats on the group, and they all came together in this set of recommendations. So I think those who sort of think through this and think about the circumstances that are going to apply next year in terms of where the state's going to be from a fiscal policy standpoint, I think they're going to be, having started in the process of developing their positions around the Fiscal Policy Working Group, I think they're going to have an advantage. And Shelley has an advantage on top of everybody else in that regard.
So this will be one of the major questions that you're asking candidates. I'm assuming when you're talking to candidates or interviewing, or if they're asking for money or whatever, this will be one of the first questions I'm assuming that you're going to ask of many candidates on this front.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I think yeah, the answer is yes. I think this is a fair way of assessing where candidates are on fiscal policy. And if they say, no, I'm not sure I would endorse that, then the follow-up question is, okay, where do you differ from it? And why do you think that works? Why do you think you can get, 21 plus 11 plus 1 for that approach that doesn't, compromise, bring together in a comprehensive plan all of the pieces? And I think a candidate's answer to that's going to be telling as well. So yeah, that'll be at the top of the list in terms of asking candidates positions on fiscal policy.
Brad, paint me a picture. If we don't pick this, the Fiscal Policy Working Group's plan, we're going to be back to this. We'll be back to the starting, it'll going to be studying the study of what we've studied before. I mean, how many times do we have to come up with the same fiscal plan over and over and over again, or a different way to slice the apple, so to speak? This is just something that's got to be addressed in the state. Otherwise, it's just, again, the detriment is no PFD, now personal taxes, yada, yada, yada. I mean, it just keeps going on and on and on.
Yeah, that is where we head. And candidates who have not thought through the issue and endorse something like the all-in approach, I mean, I won't give them a whole lot of weight, because I don't think they've thought through where the state is going, where the 10-year forecast or any forecast tells us where the state is going. I don't think they're serious candidates in the sense of fiscal policy. And to me, I mean, fiscal policy is sort of at the center of the universe, right? You don't solve K through 12. You don't solve any of the other issues unless you have fiscal policy put together and you have a good sense of how many revenues you have and what caps on spending you have and how you're going to fit all the pieces together. If you don't have a good sense of that, I don't think you solve any of the other problems out there. So candidates who haven't thought through this, or who are knee-jerking one way or the other without paying attention to the various factors that the working group recommendations have, I don't think they're serious candidates, and I certainly won't certainly won't give them a whole lot of support if I don't think they're serious on the issue.
Bard Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. The weekly top 3 continues. We got one more dead ahead on this one. Okay, so we got the new exploration on the North Slope. We've got the Fiscal Policy Working Group. What's number 3? We have to stay tuned to find out. We'll be back with more. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Dukes Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, Bard Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. The weekly top 3 continues. I mean, there's been, this has been the challenge with the Fiscal Policy Working Group, is that everybody came together in kumbaya and finally made a decision and made recommendations, yet not a single one of those recommendations have crossed the finish line. Ben Carpenter, God love him, did his best to try and drag some of this stuff kicking and screaming across the finish line, and he just couldn't get it done. There was just no political will to do any of that. And that's the most disheartening part.
Yeah, I think where Ben suffered was from getting everything divided up. So he had the sales tax proposal, but it sort of stood out there by itself. It wasn't a piece of the overall solution. It was sort of its own proposal out there. And then there were, the spending cap that sort of stood by itself, and another thing stood by the constitutionalization of the PFD stood by itself. All pieces of the Fiscal Policy Working Group, but you didn't see it as a comprehensive whole. And I think this is one thing they said. The FPWG, the Fiscal Policy Working Group, believes the legislature must pass a comprehensive solution. FPWG members do not support addressing only one or two issues to the exclusion of others. The FPWG believes addressing these issues as a comprehensive solution solves not only a fiscal challenge, but a political challenge as well. The political challenge being that you're going to have everybody's going to oppose some piece of it. But if they see it as a comprehensive solution that's going to solve all of it, they're going to be more inclined to compromise on what they see as the most important piece, because they see it getting handled as part of the overall comprehensive solution. And I think where Ben suffered was, A, the governor didn't back him up, which is a problem in and of itself. But B, it was all in these various pieces. And I think to really be successful, A, you're going to need the governor to be behind it, a governor to be behind it. So that's why I think Shelley has a leg up in this regard with respect to the campaign. But B, it's going to have to be part of a package that is going to be a bill that will have various components to it, but a bill that you can then model and you can talk about as having a solution. I mean, Trump saw the same thing. I mean, that's why we had the one big beautiful bill, right? Because he saw that there were various pieces out there, or Mike Johnson or whoever pushed for one bill, saw that there were various pieces out there that would get wound up around the axle if you were trying to push those separately. So as part of a reconciliation package, just bring it all together, and push it as a whole. That's a pattern that I think we ought to be seeing with respect to solving the fiscal problem.
That was one of the challenges here, is that the problem was the single subject rule, right? Now, my argument to that would be, this is all fiscal policy. This is all a single subject. The whole single subject is long-term fiscal planning. But the lawyers and the bean counters in there said, no, you can't do it. You have to do it individually. Those 8 or 9 points that they talk about in their fiscal plan, which include cuts, which include new oil taxes, which included new, proposed sales tax, which included, constitutionalizing the PFD and the spending cap, all those 8 points that they all finally agreed on. It was all one big, beautiful plan. And then he had to break it up because, again, they kept coming back to him saying it's a single subject rule. And that's where it got him.
Yeah. I think I've read the Eastman decision, the decision last week in which the Supreme Court upheld an appeal by David Eastman, Supreme Court or Superior Court. Anyway, one of the courts upheld a challenge by David Eastman that the combined package done at the end of the 2024 legislature was unconstitutional because it didn't adopt the single subject rule. And I've read that. And I think that a package that you just described, particularly if pushed by the governor, particularly if outlined by the governor and by a governor and outlined as a comprehensive solution, a needed comprehensive solution, I think that would pass the single subject rule. I mean, it's sort of how you define the bill. It's sort of how you define the approach that the Supreme Court seems to rely on. And if you're picking legislation that's supposed to do different things, have sort of different motivations behind them, and stack them together, that violates the single subject rule. But I think if you have a package of legislation, while broad, nevertheless is focused on the single subject of solving the state's fiscal situation, I think that would pass the single subject rule. Part of Ben's problem was the governor never got on board, so he didn't define it as that single subject, and Ben really wasn't able to define it as the single subject. So I can see where people picked it apart, but I think there's a solution to that.
Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
All right. We're continuing now the weekly top three. It's the final of the weekly top three. And Brad postulates that there is quite possibly the perfect opinion piece, the perfect op-ed, he says. Brad, what do you mean? There's perhaps the perfect op-ed out there. You may have found it. It's the unicorn in the wild. What are you talking about?
Well, almost the perfect piece.
All right.
I've got one nit to pick with it, but this is an opinion piece that Kevin McCabe wrote. I don't always agree with Kevin McCabe's writings, but this one I thought was particularly good on K through 12 funding. It says Alaska's constitution does not mandate education funding, and it's good from this standpoint. And I would encourage people who haven't read it, who want to better understand the K through 12 debate, to read it. It's good in that it starts with a constitutional provision. I mean, most of the arguments around K through 12 is, the Constitution requires that we do this or that or the other thing with respect to K through 12. And Kevin, the opinion piece patiently sets out what the constitutional provision says, which says nothing about funding. And then he goes to the Moore case, which is a 2011 decision by Judge Gleason when she was on the state court, I think, that talks about what this constitutional provision means. And Kevin goes through and articulates what the Moore case said. And here's what he says. That decision outlined 4 components: rational standards, effective assessments, adequate funding, and oversight. But here's the key point, Kevin's words. The court did not say that funding alone satisfies the constitutional obligation. It said that funding must be paired with strong oversight and accountability, the 4 components. That is the part often left out of the conversation, says Kevin. So and that's right. I mean, that's what the Moore decision says. And it's important to understand the context around the adequate funding component, which is that it doesn't stand alone. There are 4 components. And when the governor or legislators say, look, we support funding, but it's in the context of making sure that we have rational standards, effective assessments, and oversight, that they're articulating the funding in the context of what the Moore decision says they have to do. that it's not just throw more and more and more money out there. It is put it in the context of these four components. And so I think the op-ed does a great job of articulating what the K through 12 debate is really about, and articulating where the two sides differ. One side is focused primarily, almost exclusively, on funding. That is, we have to have more money. We have to throw more money at the schools. We have to fill the hole that they say they have, while the other side hesitatingly says they agree to more money, but in the context of adequate standards, oversight, and the other components of the Moore decision. And the side that's saying that funding is in the context of these other components has a lot more merit to it than the side that just says more money, more money, more money, more money, more money. And I think Kevin's piece does a great job of explaining why that is and setting that up. Here's my one pick at it. Even the Republicans now say that yes, we would agree to more money. Governor says, yes, I would agree to the $200 million additional funding if, or the $200 or whatever the heck it is, $200, that I would agree to that if we do all these other components of an overhaul comprehensive K through 12 restructuring or structuring, that I would agree to the additional money. And most of the Republicans, Mia and the others, say yes, they would agree to more money in the context of an overall plan that included additional components around assessments, and around the governor's latest thing is he wants students to be able to move from one school district to another, around things like that they would agree to more money in the context of that. My nit is this: where the heck's the money supposed to come from? I mean, even if the Republicans are saying they would agree to more money if conditioned on all of these other things, and the Democrats are certainly saying more money, where's this supposed to come from? What's the solution on the revenue side or on the fiscal side that frees up these additional funds? Because we don't have them. I mean, the only place you're going to get them is through even deeper PFD. The only place you're going to get them right now is through even deeper PFD cuts by spending more money, especially in the context of declining production tax revenues. So where's this money supposed to come from? And I think every discussion about the K through 12 issue, every discussion needs to discuss the fiscal aspects. How are we supposed to come up with this additional money? How does this fit in the context of an overall fiscal plan? Kevin will likely say, look, the ADN has a limit of 650 words. And I just didn't get it in there. I'm not asking for a whole paragraph. I'm not even asking for more than a sentence, but we need to keep all of this in the context, the K through 12 issue and the other issues, in the context of we don't have additional money unless we take it out of the pocket of middle and lower income Alaska families through additional PFD cuts. We just don't have it. And so we need to, every time we talk about a solution to K through 12 that involves revenue, that involves additional spending, and even the Republicans are talking about it now. Every time we talk about K through 12 resolution that involves additional spending, we need to talk about fiscal policy also. We need to at least have some mention of, and we need to resolve the fiscal policy issues also, to come up with the additional money in a balanced way to go through K through 12 spending. So my perfect op-ed on this issue would be what Kevin had about starting with the Constitution and going through the Moore decision, but also then adding a discussion of the fiscal aspects of it, and that we need to resolve the fiscal situation at the same time as part of getting K through 12 resolved, or else we're just making the fiscal situation and the burden on middle and lower income Alaska families, the very ones that we say we're trying to help with K through 12, we're making the burden on middle and lower income Alaska families even worse, because we aren't solving the money issue at the same time.
Well, and that's always been the challenge is, again, the answer for the one side is just more money, no matter what, more money. And Kevin is rightly pointing out that the Constitution says we provide public education, but it was the Moore decision that said we had to fund it. But again, they keep dropping these other two components, the accountability, the oversight, that kind of stuff. But the biggest question that, again, I come back to every time they scream more is, where does it come from? That's the thing. We it seems like that doesn't matter to them. Anybody you discuss with, it doesn't matter. Wherever it has to come from, whoever has to be hurt, wherever it has to, and that's, again, it's not a solution. Kevin is at least saying these are the four things that the Moore decision said. We need to use all these in conjunction. Now, where does the money come from? It's obviously a bigger and deeper subject, but something that most people don't want to touch on. We talked about that earlier.
It is a bigger and deeper subject, but to me, it's the key subject. I mean, all we're doing, if we solve K through 12 by taking additional PFD cuts, which is right now what we would have to do, all we're doing is making another problem worse. Without solving the overall fiscal issue, we're by giving more money to Peter out of Paul's pocket, we're just making the problems with Paul worse. So I understand that sort of like the single subject bill, right? You got to stick on the subject. You got to solve what's in front of you. But one of the pieces of solving what's in front of you about K through 12 is the fiscal issue of where the heck this additional money is supposed to come from. Because we're not talking about it. I mean, we're not talking about it just this 1 year. The governor's line item veto makes it a 1 year issue, but the legislation passed. It's permanent. I mean, it goes on the books and sets up a higher BSA on a permanent basis. So yes, we resolved the $200 this year, however that plays out in the budget. But it shows up next year, the year after that, the year after that, and the year after that, and the year after that. It's not a 1 year problem. It is a multi-year problem. And so if we're going to solve this, you've got to solve on a long-term basis. You've got to solve the fiscal situation on a long-term basis, or else it just keeps popping up as another problem next year and another problem the year after that and another problem the year after that.
It's the truth. Bard Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. May not be palatable, may be painful, but it is the truth. Brad, thank you so much for coming on board. As always, it's great to talk with you. Thanks for being part of the program.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
All right, folks, hour 2 is dead ahead. Chris Story ends up with us. We got some recap. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this article when we get back. The Michael Duke Show. I mean, you're right. The fiscal policy is the cornerstone of any plan for anything that we're talking about. Anything that has to be built, it has to be built on a sound fiscal plan. And the problem is there's no political will to put a fiscal plan in place because somebody's ox is going to get gored somewhere along the lines on this deal.
Yeah. And that's why, to go back to the second segment, that's why I think Shelley's got a leg up in the campaign by saying, I've been there. I've dealt with this issue. It didn't get done under the last governor. Under the current governor, he didn't get behind it. He didn't endorse a comprehensive solution. I'm running on it. I've been there. I've been in the middle of this. I've seen all of the sides of it. I've seen how to get to a solution, and that's what I'm running on. And I think candidates for the legislature, and I think candidates for other candidates for governor ought to be doing it as well. But Shelley's position, because she was on that working group, Shelley's position, I think, to really make a great push on it. And I hope she does. I mean, it may be that she thinks that, part of it is revenues, right? And it may be that she thinks, well, I can't talk about revenues because that's going to take away from, the base that I need to support me to get into the top 4 and that sort of stuff. And that'd be sad. Because then the candidate that ought to be talking about the most about the working group recommendations wouldn't, because she's been taken off by one of these sub issues. So I hope other candidates talk about it as well. Shelley doesn't, but I think this is the key to solving the fiscal policy issues that we're facing. I think this is the fiscal policy issues we're facing are the key to solving the other issues we're facing. I mean, people say we don't have enough infrastructure. We don't have the money for it. People say we don't fund K through 12 enough. We don't have the money for it. And you can just go on down the list. And until we get fiscal policy set and resolved and the issues around it sort of tightened up, I don't think we're going to solve any of these other things. People are just going to keep arguing about, we don't have enough money for this, or we don't have enough money for that, or we ought to be doing this, or we ought to be doing that. All of that involves money. And until we have that straightened out, it's just going to continue to go in a circle.
Do you think that candidates are avoiding the issue of the fiscal thing because they simply think that the public doesn't want to hear about it? Is it too hard an issue? I mean, what do you think? What's the reason why a lot of these fiscal topics don't get touched, do you think?
Oh, I think, and I would certainly be interested on what candidates themselves think, but I think it's because they're trying to appeal to subsections of the electorate as their base to get into the top four, and they are wary of endorsing something or saying something that their base is going to go off on and attack them on. I mean, Ben Carpenter. Let's look at Ben. Ben endorsed sales taxes, and Jesse Bjorkman beat him over the head with it down in the Kenai Senate race, and Ben lost that primary, or lost that race because of the way in which Bjorkman used the sales tax issue. So I think candidates are wary of their opponents or of their base picking out one issue from the comprehensive solution and saying, well, if you endorse the comprehensive solution, you must endorse this. And if you endorse this, that's wrong, because now you're endorsing revenues, you're endorsing taxes. And, I don't want a taxer in the governor's office. So the candidates have to be prepared to say it's one component. Look what you're getting. You're getting a constitutional PFD. You're getting a spending cap. You're getting, and go on down through the list of the other pieces that offset the impact of the one piece of revenues. And I think candidates need to be prepared to do that. But I think they're concerned that parts of that a part of their base that they feel they need are going to pick out that one issue and beat them over the head with that one issue. I mean that happened to the representative up in Matsu that we were talking about last week. I mean, she endorsed Senator Yunt's resolution on, or proposed revenues on, the digital tax, the proposed revenues coming from the digital tax. She endorsed that, and her district starts beating her. District Republican committee starts beating on her. I mean, that is one piece of a comprehensive solution, but they pick out that piece and start beating on her about it. That's just wrong. I mean, that's why I gave her $2,000, because that's just wrong. We've got to get to a solution. We've got to have a comprehensive solution that has multiple pieces, and we need to support candidates that talk about those multiple pieces, as opposed to people who want to pick one of them and beat them over the head about it.
Again, as far as legislatively, I mean, the single subject rule is really what kind of submarine this whole deal. Because again, my argument is this is all about a fiscal policy. I don't know why that argument can't be made, that these are all part and pieces. I mean, the constitutional provision has to be standalone because it's a separate bill. I mean, that's required to be a separate bill, but everything else could be in one comprehensive package, as like an omnibus type bill that deals with fiscal policy, because every one of those components is dealing with fiscal policy. So I don't know if it is the bureaucracy that's pushing back on this, whether, Ledge Legal or who, I don't know. But to me, it's like this is all this is all part of a whole here, and you can't just pick each one out. And in fact, they in their own report, and they talk about this. You can't take this one piece at a time. It has to be a holistic approach. That was their belief, and they started out with that and they ended with that. Yep. In their thing. It must pass a comprehensive solution, is what they say, and that's part of the problem. All right, Brad, we got to go. Thanks so much for coming on board. It's good to talk with you, my friend. Thanks for being part of it today.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
All right, folks, we got to go. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to hour 2 of the big radio show here on the old program here. We appreciate you being part of it. We just finished up with Bard Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, and the weekly top 3. We just finished up talking with him. Some good stuff in there today. If you missed it, you can go back and listen to it on the podcast, which is available on Spotify or wherever you find podcasts. Or you can watch the replay on Facebook, YouTube, or Rumble as well. Any of those will bring you a good chance to get some insight into what Brad was talking about today. Again, this is part of our problem. The issue boils down to one thing. We spend too much money. Now, there's 3 solutions to that. You can, 1, spend less. Now, we know that is not politically palatable, because legislators at every level, state, national, wherever, they don't want to spend less, because that's not how bringing home the bacon to your district, be it congressional district or legislative district or whatever, that's a big win for you, right? That shows that you're doing the job, and that's what gets you reelected. So spending less is not necessarily is not a palatable solution. The second one is to raise more money, get more state income, put more taxes in, right? Whether it's personal taxes, sales taxes, oil taxes, any combination thereof. And that's also not palatable, but this time to the parties who were involved, be it the public, who doesn't want to have any taxes, be it the oil companies that obviously want to pay as little tax as possible to protect their shareholders and everything else, as they should. I mean, that's what the plan says. But the problem is you got these 2 recalcitrant bodies. On the one hand, the legislators and the politicians, on the other hand, the public. Nobody wants to take a full stand on their opportunities to fix this, either the spending or the revenues, the taxes. And then you got the third choice, which is a combination of the 2. The third choice is a little bit of cuts, a little bit of taxes. This is, that's really, those are the 3 options that you have. Now, in a perfect world, obviously, a compromise between the 2 would be the one where everybody's ox gets a little gored, but in the end, everybody wins a little bit, right? They don't cut as much as we thought. They don't raise as much taxes as they thought. Somewhere in the middle, it's good. And ideally, I'm on the cutting spending side. That's where I'm at. They just spend too damn much money. The rent's too damn high. That's, I mean, put a boot on my head and say, that is it. The rent is too damn high. I mean, we could, but again, there is no political will to get that done because most people are not as intimately knowledgeable or as intimately informed as you listeners to this show. You guys care about this stuff. It's one of the reasons why you keep coming back to the show, on a daily or weekly basis and visit with us and listen to us because you want to know more. Most people don't care. They're worried about their jobs, their kids, their houses, their dogs, the must-see TV Thursday, whatever it is that they're worried about. And this is an afterthought. Their idea of taking responsibility for this is to make sure that they vote on election day, and that's it. That's just reality. That's just oh, it's voting day today. Who's running? Who's running, and who do I vote for? Which dives into a deeper problem about people who've got, letters and symbols next to their names that may not, maybe shouldn't have them because most people are not getting educated or informed on it. This is all part of but this is where the whole fiscal policy working group comes in. Now, I've got the report here in front of me from the 2021 fiscal policy working group. And they, here you have a separate group of people. I mean, people who, you've got, Shelley Hughes and Mike Shower on the one side, and you've got Calvin Schreggy, Jonathan Christ Tompkins, Grier Hopkins on the other side, right? So you got these. It's a completely dichotomously opposed group of people who are like, and yet they sat down and they developed a plan. They sat down and they finally agreed. After creating a common definition of the problem, the group identified mathematically and politically necessary parts of the comprehensive solution. The group unanimously agreed that the following were necessary parts of the comprehensive solution: a constitutional single account permanent fund structure that withdraws limited by POMV constitutional certainty for the permanent fund dividend, a new POMV based PFD formula, a healthy capital budget, new revenues, budget reductions, spending cap reform, a several-year transition period with one-time fiscal measures, resilience to fiscal stress, a constitutional budget reform, and a process. A comprehensive solution must be negotiated and agreed to as a whole, not to be taken up one part at a time. This is, they laid all this stuff out piece by piece. And yet when it came time for the rubber to meet the road, they kept getting stonewalled by, again, I guess it's legal, saying that you can't bring these up, even though every one of these pieces, with the exception of the constitutional portions of it, which are required by the Constitution to be their own separate bill, every other piece of it could be part of a single bill because they all have to do with long-term fiscal policies. It's all fiscal matters. But somebody said no. Somebody said no. You can't do that. And then enter Ben Carpenter, and decide here trying to bring the pieces of this together, and eventually getting riddled full of bullet holes over this thing because he tried to bring some of these pieces together. One of which included a 2% sales tax that was contingent on these other things passing. But that didn't matter. The nuances, again, are lost on the people. Jesse Bjorkman, who is not a conservative. I don't know. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just trying to lay it out. He's not a conservative, yet he took out one of the most fiscally responsible and conservative legislators there were in that battle, because he then utilized that one bill, that one piece that Ben brought up as part of a overall fiscal package, and used it to just beat the hell out of him with it. Because again, most people are not paying attention. They get what they know about what's happening in the legislatures is based on the last ad that they heard or the last news report that they read. I'm not criticizing him. I'm just laying out some facts. Most people are not listening to this show to get a detailed deep dive. I mean, sometimes, we lose people because we bring somebody like Brad on who gets down into the weeds on the whole, NPRA issue, saying, yes, there'll be more production, but by the way, here's what the numbers actually say. There'll be much less revenue, 55% less revenue with the 40% increase in production, 55% less revenue. Most people don't know. Most legislators are not even, they may know it, but they're not even acknowledging it. Which means that our job as people who are informed, who understand the details, who have read the fiscal policy. I mean, if you ask fiscal policy working group, most of the people in the state are going to go, what? What's that? What is that? They have no idea. They won't have read it's a 4-page report. It takes all of 3 minutes to read, but they don't have it. They don't have, and they haven't read, they haven't heard about it. They don't know, which makes our job as engaged and informed super voters, it makes our job that much harder, but also that much more important. And I will say, Brad said, why don't they bring up these fiscal issues? Because quite honestly, most people's eyes probably glaze over the minute you start getting into fiscal issues. I mean, they just, what happened? I don't know. He started talking about money stuff and I lost my train of thought. I was thinking about what to cook for dinner tonight. And unfortunately, while that may be completely understandable, at the same time, if we don't deal with these issues, this is gonna kill us, man. This is going to just absolutely kill us if we don't take care of this. So, yeah, just going through this stuff with Brad, and I mean, I understand exactly what he's saying. I understand exactly, and his point is 100% valid. The problem is there is the truth, and then there is the public who doesn't, they're just not paying. And we're going to get into this in the next segment because we're going to talk about this piece from Kevin McCabe, this opinion piece, which Brad called an almost perfect op-ed. Yeah, Frank just said, my eyes got a little glassy listening to Brad this morning, right? I mean, do you think I bring Brad on every week because I just love to talk about taxes and all this other guy? No, I'm trying to beat into people the understanding that there is some deeper issues here and that we need to analyze every aspect of it, including taxes, because it's important that we get into those weeds every now and then. It's it's crazy, but we're going to talk about this opinion piece with Kevin McCabe, which it suffers from some of the same problems. Not the opinion piece, but what he's pointing out is some of the same problems that we're dealing with on this fiscal policy stuff. And, again, I don't have 100% solution to this, folks. The solution is we're going to have to carry the water, I think, is the bottom line. We're going to have to take the time to, educate and to go out and talk with people and, try and bring them some truth. Because otherwise, like I said before, it'll be like, oh, today's election day. Who's running? Who's running? Who do I need to vote for? You've been, no, I just, this is, I'm just going to vote and that'll be it. Remember, you get the government you deserve. Government is what happens to you when you stop paying attention. And that's where we're at right now. All right, we got to go. We'll be back in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return in just a moment.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay. Let's see what else. Every election, says Terry, I get calls all day long. Who do I vote for? Yeah, I mean, if I had a nickel for every one of those phone calls I got, apparently I get a dozen votes. Apparently I get to vote a dozen times because people call up and they say, okay, this is who I'm voting for. You can make your choice, but here's it. Okay, great. Thanks. Nobody's paying attention to it. Hasn't happened as much in the last couple of years because when people were calling me, I started saying, aren't you paying attention? I got a little pointed about it. Like, aren't you paying? Isn't this important to you? Isn't this? So I haven't gotten quite so many calls, but there's, 1 year, I remember I got like a dozen different calls from a dozen different people. Like, who do I vote for? Your voting day is tomorrow or the next day. Who do I vote for? While I appreciate your faith in me giving you the information and me telling you how to vote, thanks for giving me some extra votes there. Why aren't you paying attention to it? If it's important enough to interrupt your day in the middle of the day and to take a day and have to go vote, if it's important enough for that, why aren't you taking a few minutes and getting a little bit of information? It's not like they're not inundating you, every minute of every day for 6 months. It's not like you're not getting inundated by that stuff. Brian just said, I've gotten texts from people who are in the voting booth. Who do I vote for? Yeah, I know, man, right? Like, wow. Okay, wow. This is the stuff that we need to be paying attention to. And you know what? Like I said, if I had to do it again, I probably wouldn't have gotten a little sharp with those people. I probably would have just told them who to vote for and then moved on. Because now some of them don't call me. Maybe they took my words to heart. Maybe they're taking my words to heart and they're going out and doing their own information gathering now, but maybe I shamed them into just not calling me. I don't know. But, wow. Why don't you take some personal responsibility and get the information for yourself? It's not that hard. It's not that hard. Listen to a show like this, a couple times a week. You'll get enough information to be able to make a decision. Yeah, like I said, I like the idea of being able to get all those extra votes. You know, hey, and all I ever say is, this is who I'm voting for. You can make your own decision, but this is who I'm voting for and why. Boom, 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 boom. I don't go into their opponents. I don't go into why. I just say I'm voting for this person, this person, this person for these reasons. You can make your own decision. Okay. I mean, if they vote the same as I do, then okay, great. But again, I don't understand taking, we've got a gift. We've got a gift in this country of being able to have some self-determination. And people they squander it. They don't bother to figure it out for themselves, which is frustrating. Frank just said, aren't those who asked how to vote kind of smart? Just think about how much time they did not have to spend being involved. Let someone else do it. I'll go fishing. Yeah, well, it's true. It's true. And maybe that's it. Maybe they're like, okay, I'll just, I know I trust this person, so I'll just ask this person and then I don't have to bother myself with it. Okay. I mean, maybe that's the smart way. Meanwhile, the rest of us are out there like, how do we fix this? It's crazy. Most people don't care until it affects them. It's too much research or responsibility. Yeah, I could see that, Lisa. I could see that. Here we go.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke show.
Yes, I am. All right, let's continue on here. Brad was talking about this piece from Kevin McCabe, the opinion piece that's in the ADN. I'm sure it's probably in other locations as well. But Brad called this the nearly perfect op-ed. Again, his only little quibble with it was that Kevin didn't talk about his or the fiscal reasons, like where's the money going to come from? If you do, where's the fiscal policy? Where's the money? Where's the beef? That's his only complaint on this whole thing. And I understand, he's limited in number of words and everything else. But, I think, again, this goes back to what I was just talking about, where people are not informed and their opinions are based on the last advertisement they heard or the last news story they read. That's their opinions. And they're as malleable as that. If they hear something different, it's, it's just like their bobbleheads, which way does it go? If the last person they talked to was a janitor, they declaim the benefits of a mop, right? I mean, that's just, again, it's not a criticism. It's just there's a lot of people out there who are not paying attention other than to I'm going to have to come up with a word for it, but it's just like it's the thumbnail, it's the gloss, it's the veneer. They see the headline and they read the headline and maybe the first paragraph, and that's as much information as they got. And they're not really thinking deep. It's not a priority to them, and that's fine. If it, I understand. If it's not a priority to them, I understand. But the same thing here appears. We're talking about this opinion piece from Kevin McCabe. He said some legislators, along with the well-funded education industrial lobby, keep repeating the false claim that Alaska's constitution requires the legislature to increase school funding. That's simply not true. That narrative is built on misinterpretation and judicial activism, not on the plain text of the Constitution. And it's more built on misinterpretation and intentionally misleading the public. Those are my words, not his at the end there. That misleading. It is intentional. They know that most people are not paying attention. So if they mutter on and on about how, well, there's a constitutional mandate to increase school funding, there's a you've got to, if they know that if they repeat it enough, that most people are not paying attention anyway. So they don't, they'll be like, oh, okay. They just nod, put them all in rocket chairs. They just know, oh, okay. I could see that. That's okay. All right. not understanding that that's not the true story. You know, that's not how it works. So again, he goes on to say, excuse me, he goes on to say the narrative is built on misinterpretation and judicial activism, not on the plain text of the Constitution. Article 7, Section 1 of the Alaska Constitution states, quote, the legislature shall, by general law, establish and maintain a system of public schools open to all children of the state, unquote. That's the provision. It requires them to create and maintain public schools. It does not require a specific level of funding. It does not require automatic increases. It does not require for us to pay up on demand. It basically just says you should create and maintain a public school system. Now, what they're conflating here is that mandate to create a public school system with the decision in 2011 in the Moore decision, Moore versus the state of Alaska, where the court said the state must provide a, quote, meaningful education opportunity, unquote. The decision also outlined 4 components: rational standards, effective assessments, adequate funding, and oversight. Now, all they're pointing to and all they're doing is they continue to conflate this with both the constitutional provision and they just take the adequate funding part of it. They're ignoring the rational standards, the effective assessments, or the oversight, which again, oversight and accountability and policies, all of those things are baked into this decision. But see, they ignore everything except for the adequate funding part of it. And then they repeat it, and then they repeat it, and then they repeat it. And people who are all stirred up by emotion because little Johnny's school just got closed and he's going to have to go to a whole new school. And he's going to be so confused by the whole new school and he's going to miss his teacher. And who are so overwhelmed by emotion, they're going to bite into that and be like, oh yeah, they're going to, like a dog on a bone. Adequate funding, though the Constitution mandates that you got to increase them because otherwise it's not adequate. If it doesn't raise for inflation, it must not be adequate. Even if that's the argument, and even if that's the truth, you can't leave out the other 3 components: assessments, oversight, standards, policies. Though you can't leave those out of the equation. But they do. They blithely do. And again, the stamping of the foot to say, no, we're not going to do any policies. We're not going to change any policies. None of those. All we want is the money. Shut up and give us the money. That's what it's all about. Shut up and give us the money. That's what it's, He goes on to talk about, many school districts are falling short. Graduation rates are low. I mean, again, I remember during the Palin administration when graduation was 76% was the graduation rate, and they were bemoaning it. 1 in 4 students are failing out. And what is it this year? 72, 73%. I mean, we've gone up a whopping 4%. So essentially still 1 out of 4 students are failing. Still happening. There's no accountability. Student performance is down. And I know we heard the Bobby Burgess and Morgan Dulane article about, that's just a little, that's just a little bit. They only tested a few kids. And so that's not really a great, okay, come on. It's a nationally standard. They've been doing it for years. And now all of a sudden you're like, okay, we spend more than anybody else, but we're in the bottom. So it must be the testing that's wrong. Must be the testing that's wrong. I mean, meanwhile, Mississippi went from the bottom of the pack to upward, upper middle of the pack. with just policy changes and very little else, still spending some of the least amounts in the country. We spend the most amounts in the country. The legislature tries to push transparency, performance reviews, or student assessments, and it's the administrators, the NEA, the council on school boards. All they don't want that. They just want the money, and that's what it becomes, is a money grab. And again, people are not paying attention. They will believe that. They will believe the shtup that the NEA or that the principal or the superintendent puts out in his letters. They believe, that's why they do things like, we had to cut 400 positions. We only actually had to lay off 7 people, but we cut 400 positions, and they don't tell you about the 7 people. They just tell you that 400, and we're going to lose 400 teachers. And they wisely nod, not telling you that those are unfilled positions, that they can move people around, that they can do all this kind of stuff. And that in the end, the actual number of people who've lost a job is a fraction of what they're intimating to you, because they want to get you riled up. Because again, people are not paying, they're not reading deeper. There's no analysis or accurate thought on this stuff. He said, if we truly want to fulfill our constitutional duty, we need to stop letting school districts off the hook. They must be expected to innovate, operate efficiently, and put students first. The legislature has a duty to make sure that happens. That duty includes oversight, not just appropriation. It includes accountability, not just appeasement. He continues, this is not about attacking public school. It's about protecting. I'm sure somebody in the chat room right now is screaming about how we're saying teachers are bad. Never said that. Never said, I've said it for years. There's something flawed with the educational system. The industrial complex, the curricula, it's not that a teacher problem. It is an institutional problem. He says, this is not about attacking public education. It's about protecting it. It's about restoring faith in a system that's supposed to serve our children, not special interests. That's a dig at the fact that there's people who are fleeing the system because they don't trust it anymore. They don't have faith in it. He says it's about solving the generational knowledge crisis the education industrial complex is creating. The Constitution gives the authority to the legislature, not the courts, not to unelected lobbyists or advocacy groups, to build and maintain a school system that works. That includes determining how much funding is appropriate and to ensure that every dollar is used to support student achievement. This is a fantastic piece, even if it doesn't mention the funding mechanism. Because again, that's kind of a sidebar to the direction that he's going here. But again, add to that an article about the spending. If Kevin did another opinion piece that was specifically about the fiscal policy, because he was on the fiscal policy working group he was an alternate, right? Yeah, he was an alternate he was one of the main, he was the House minority rep. Him and Ben Carpenter were the main reps for the House minority. He was there. He could write another article and then combine the two together and you got the perfect piece. How do we pay for it? And then the bigger question is, should we just pay for it or should we have all these other things? But again, this is a symptom of a woefully uninformed electorate. That's when it comes down to it, if you're just making all your decisions on an emotional basis and you're not digging deeper into the fact, I got into an argument here about 3 or 4 months ago with somebody. We started talking about this and it was a polite argument, but I started throwing some of the facts out there about the stats and graduation rates and how much money is actually making it into the classroom. And their eyes were like, what? They couldn't, mainly because most of their arguments were coming from an emotional, my kid is not going to get the education he needs. And I'm like, I want your child to have the education he needs. But if we just keep throwing money at the problem, that's not going to get it. That's part of the problem. All right. We gotta go. We're gonna take it. All right, we're gonna be back. Chris Story, the man from Homer, is gonna be joining us here in a few minutes, doing his thing. And we will continue the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We'll return with Chris Story, the man from Homer.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Does that make any sense? I mean, did anything that I say there make any sense? Don't answer that, Chris. Chris Story's in the green room. He's saying, you know, I feel frustrated because we keep getting, you know, we're losing the war of words. It's almost like it's a PR campaign, right? And we're losing the war of words because they keep manipulating the public in ways because the public is uninformed about the deeper parts of these issues. This is all, I mean, this is all part of the, you know, this is all part and part of the problem. Oh, yeah. Was I being mauled by a dog? Yes. Yes. That's my wife's dog. She keeps busting into the studio. I can't get the door to latch properly. She's a little tiny thing, but somehow she keeps unlatching the door and coming in. All right. Let's go over here and get Mr. Story added to the stage. Are you with me, Mr. Story, sir?
Good morning. You know the story about sliced bread, don't you?
Which story? The Betty White story, or what are you talking about?
You know the expression, you know, that's the best thing since sliced bread. But
Okay,
the
right.
founder,
Yep.
the guy who invented sliced bread, he died penniless. He couldn't sell it. People didn't want sliced bread. And it would be years and years later before people accepted the concept of pre-sliced bread. So, I mean, I just want you to feel at ease that it may take a while. You know, it takes time to sell us on a good thing or common sense or whatever. So just don't feel like you're wasting your time. You're just selling sliced bread. It may take a while.
It's been 25 years, dude. I'm a little tired. That's all. I'm just a little tired sometimes. You know, we keep coming back to that. Like I've been trying to beat this into people's heads for 25 years, and you know, some people get it, but it seems like we're always fighting a rear guard action of retreat. That's part of the problem.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's maybe time to change your approach and just simply give in and just become part of the blob.
Maybe I should just join the welfare state, live off the enemy supply lines. Maybe that's what I should do. It'll be fine. Don't worry about it. Okay. It's not really going to happen, but it's all good. Chris Story, the man from Homer, he's ready to go. Here we're a couple minutes out. Let me put Chris on hold for a second here while I go back into the chat room and see what you guys have to say. Welcome back, Miguel. Miguel's back from vacation. Melissa's listening to us on her way to Tampa. She wouldn't want to miss a Chris Story segment. Kevin put the link to his op-ed in the chat room, which again, apparently it's behind a paywall, so I didn't realize it was behind the paywall. So sorry about that. Because the court only gave their opinion, we can follow all or part of it. It's not law or regulation. Well, but it has the force of law in a lot of ways. They look to a court decision as if it is the ultimate deciding arbiter of how the law is to be interpreted. That's where that comes from. Kenny's golden rule number 2: never trust anyone to know how to spend your gold better than you. Oh my God, Brian, you were quoting Solzhenitsyn so early in the morning. I don't even know if I can. Here's what Brian has got a Solzhenitsyn quote. He says, "We know that they are lying. They know that they are lying. They even know that we know that they are lying. We also know that they know we know they are lying too. They, of course, know that we certainly know that we know that they are lying too as well, but they are still lying. In our country, the lie has become not just a moral category, but the pillar industry of this country." It's God, it feels that way, shouldn't it? You know? Yeah, no, I did see that, Kevin. Corey and I are friends, and I saw that post on his Facebook page. Kevin says you all go to the Corey DeAngelis Facebook page and look at his screenshots from the 2025 NEA handbook. OMG. Anyone who is concerned about their influence should look at that. It's crazy. Then he posts the link to Corey's page in the chat room there. Yeah, that was a great opinion piece, by the way, Kevin. Good stuff. Brian just said story talking about a story. That's irony for you. That's irony. We'll see. Okay. All right. I think I am caught up. I'm only 20 seconds out, so even if I'm not caught up, we'll have to deal with it. We're coming back to it. The Michael Duke Show. Oh, I didn't ask Chris. 10 seconds. I didn't ask Chris what the topic was. We'll have to ask him on the other side. Here we go. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Only 19 likes this morning. Why don't you like me, man? Why don't you like me? Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Okay, one final segment for today's show, the Tuesday edition. That's when we bring on the Sage of South Peninsula, the Sage of the South Peninsula, the guru of positivity, Chris Story, the man from Homer. You can find him at ilovehomeralaska.com. That's where he's got all of his sage wisdom, advice, and writings, podcasts, audiobooks, regular books, and links to his snake oil that he sells in his spare time or something. Anyway, he joins us this morning. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
I'm on top of the world, Michael, right where you'd expect to find me.
Exactly. I can see you from here, way down there. Anyway, let's he's not very playful this morning. What would you like to what's our topic for today, Chris?
Well, it's actually kind of interesting. I think it might tie into your frustration or frustration. You know, there's two different types of people in the world. Those that say frustration, those that say frustration. And you're having some this morning, and I'm getting the sense that your persistence is flagging. You might be ready to give up and throw in the towel. So I might be here with a life ring. I'm going to throw it out in the water. You can grab it, or you can sink and drown. We'll move on.
Okay. No,
we'll miss you. So here,
yeah. Okay.
Ready?
All right. It's not as bad as you think, Chris. I'm not
Good.
throwing in the towel. I'm just expressing some frustration at the general malaise that is kind of the public interest. That's my point. So if I misrepresented that as I'm quitting, I'm just frustrated at the malaise.
I was hopeful. Because I was going to take your spot, the morning spot. That was my real. All right. Fine.
Okay.
So you're not ready to quit. Okay. But this X factor formula, I think might help in any pursuit, be it persuading the public for their own best interest, be it persuading in a sales career or moving an advancement up in your own career or relationships, whatever it is you're looking for. The X factor formula, as I'm about to spell out for you, will change everything about your life. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready for the X factor. Give it to me.
All right. X equals job skills multiplied by personal skills. So X equals job skills multiplied by personal skills, meaning, in other words, You can know your job inside and out. You could be the best carpenter. You could be the best carpet layer. You could be the best radio host. You could be the best police officer. You could be the best at anything. You could have all the job skills. You could have the skills to a factor of 10 and have maybe a personal skill level somewhere in the realm of 4. And the person that has a 4 in the job skills department relative to their abilities, but a 10 factor in their personal skills will either perform equal or better than you and go further in life. So your personal skills have a much bigger impact on your life than any other skill you can adopt or learn. Because the longer you're on the job, the more job skills you'll get. But staying on the job or exceeding and excelling on the job are completely dependent upon your personal skills. And I'll outline those, but I want to make sure that makes sense. X equals job skills multiplied by personal skills.
Okay. All right. X equals job skills multiplied by personal skills, but personal skills have more weight in the equation.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And here's what they are. Goal setting. Are you somebody that can look forward, set a goal? Does your reach exceed your grasp? Irrespective of your job skills, does your reach exceed your grasp? Are you reaching forward, looking forward, setting goals and having self-determination? Are you somebody that has a positive mental attitude? Do you listen? And do you listen with an empathetic ear? Or, as you and I've discussed many times, so many of us are listening only waiting for the other person to stop talking for a second so we can start. But we're not really listening and we're not using that empathetic ear. Charitable. Are you charitable? That's a personal skill. Charitable both in giving and being generous, but also, do you give the benefit of the doubt? Are you charitable with your assumptions? Because most of us aren't. Most of the time we make an assumption and it's probably with a negative bent. That's human nature. But you can develop a personable skill of becoming charitable with your thoughts about other people and your assumptions and giving that benefit of the doubt. Are you inspiring to others? Are you living in a way that is inspirational, such that you're helping other people motivate? That's an incredible personal skill. Or how about practicing gratitude? Scientifically been proven in laboratories and colleges and lots of thought leaders have proven without a shadow of a doubt that gratitude is a practice you can adopt and improve every aspect of your life. But that's a personal skill. It's doubtful it's going to show up on your resume, but it's something that you can bring to your personal resume and multiply everything you do in life by it. Do you have follow through? Are you somebody that's persistent? Will you persist until you win? That is a personal skill, not a job skill. Do you make eye contact? That's such a base level skill
Right.
personally that makes a huge difference when you meet somebody.
But it's
And it
amazing
was
how
eye
many
color
people
dependent.
it's amazing how people a lot of times won't meet your eyes. I mean, that's really I mean, I notice that a lot because I look people in the eye all the time, and it's amazing how many people just don't do that one simple thing.
It makes all the difference. It makes all the difference whether you're selling or whether, as you're on the radio, and I still feel like you're making direct eye contact with me. That's how strong it
Oh,
is
yeah.
with you.
Oh, yeah.
They've done studies. Dark-eyed people want less eye contact. People with lighter eye colors crave more eye contact. Look, that may be the case. You can learn this skill no matter what your eye color is. And if you're wearing a patch on one eye, make eye contact with the other eye. That's a huge skill. I'm working with my grandkids on that all the time. Like, okay, no, hold on. Look me in the eye. Okay, great. Now let's finish our conversation. That's a huge. And then a firm handshake, but not just a firm handshake to show you're stronger than the other person. A firm handshake assures the other party you're present in that moment, that you are somebody of resolve, and also you better shake hands with honor. There's got to be something behind it. It isn't just that, don't hand over a dead floppy fish to shake a hand. Nobody wants that. I don't care what gender you are. A firm handshake, but there better be honor in it.
Isn't that weird when somebody, because we've all had that happen where somebody shakes your hand and it was like, wow, that was kind of weird. I mean, you immediately do a double take and kind of reassess the person when somebody does that, where they don't.
You check for
I'm
a
not looking
pulse.
Yeah, I'm not looking for you to crush my hand, but I'm looking for at least a firm, it should be, doorknob firm, instead of, like,
And,
oh, I just feel like I had a squishy toy in my hand kind of thing.
and while we're talking about that, there is a technique whereby, and I think a lot of people do this unconsciously, or it's a subconscious, and then there's people that do it overtly because they understand it and they understand the power of the body language. When you shake somebody's hand and they turn your wrist, and they, while shaking your hand, they turn to where their hand is on top, and they're expressing dominance, and they're saying, I am in charge here. And that, to me, when that happens, and it does occasionally happen, and sometimes it's with somebody that they know exactly what they're doing, and it's like they want to show you who's in charge. That's not what I'm talking about. That is to me, that is a very cheesy technique by, I think that's very synthetic and insincere. I'm talking about just a good firm handshake that says, I'm here, I'm present, you can count on me. And that there's
Right.
honor in it. And honor is another soft skill. Honor is another way of saying, just like follow through or gratitude or setting goals in your life. Honor is that if I shake hands with you, we have a deal. Now we'll back it up with paperwork, of course, but we have a deal. And deals are subject to change and due diligence. I get it. But there's just intentionality in a strong handshake that says, I have honor and you can count on me. So essentially, going back to the formula, it's X. So that X factor, that's something different. When you meet somebody that's in your industry and they're, wow, light years ahead, or you meet somebody who's doing something you'd like to do, but you can't quite figure it out. There's an X factor. Like, what is that? It isn't that they're better at the skills of the job necessarily, or the practice of the art, or whatever it is that you're looking at that you'd like to improve upon. Their skills might be ahead of you talent wise or job skill wise, but I promise you, if somebody has an X factor that you admire and the world admires, it's the multiplication of that personal skill set which they've adopted. And you can too. Each of us can, and we can improve upon it every single day with
Okay.
practice.
So how do we brush up on our people skill? I mean, what is the job skills? Great. But our personal skill, how do we brush up on it? 90 seconds here.
I think it's coming back to this. Look, this is my version of the personal skills. You get to pick your own, but I'll give you an example. Last night I was, after we were done with all the work for the day and everything, I took about 40 minutes in the library here, and I was watching an old 25-year-old speech from a sales coach, and I was taking notes in my journal. That's working harder on myself than I do on my job. I'm always working towards honing those skills, but the personal skills are what I'm spending a little more time on. And then I moved on to watching Ballard, which is a great show, by the way, on Amazon. But I just want to squeeze that in and also take notes and journal and come back to what we do so often here, Michael, is talk about introspection and just really paying attention. Maybe identify first, what are you missing of all of these soft skills, of all of these personal the skills? What should you be working on? And identify even just
Right.
one
Right.
and develop it as you go.
It's good stuff. Chris Story, you can find him at ilovehomeralaska.com. We're out of time for today, folks. We will see you tomorrow. Be kind, love one another, live well. All right, Mr. Story. There's good stuff. I mean, you're right. There's a lot of times where personal skills will take you farther than you ever realized. In many different opportunities. I remember one time I was selling radio advertising in Fairbanks, and I got a call from it was a realtor, in fact, and he's like, let's go to lunch. And I'm like, okay. And while I was there, he's like, okay. He goes, well, I brought you to lunch because I want to hire you because you're so persistent with me and you keep coming back, and you got the person. And it was just like one of those things where I'm like, well, thanks, but no thanks. But I mean, it was that personal skills that brought that opportunity, because it brings extra opportunity to you if you do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%. And that kind of recruitment happens with people that have this X factor. You can't quite put your finger on it, but there's something about this guy. It could be the persistence, but I promise you, it's the soft skills, because that realtor didn't have a clue about how the radio world works. They saw something in you. Jim Rohn said, for things to change, you've got to change. And I think that's the bottom line of it all. It's like you've got to change, not just pay attention on the job and pay. I remember you telling the story about the Fred Meyer clerk that you would go, and even if there's 3 people in his line and 2 in the other, you'd go stand in that guy's line because of his personal skills, his ability
Right.
to make eye
Right.
contact, make conversation, show interest in you, be empathetic. Even a clerk in a store that's being swiftly replaced by these, automation and self-checkout and everything. This
Right.
guy
Right.
will be the last one standing when everybody else is let go or moved into stocking shelves. He'll be the last one standing, not because he can scan faster, but because of those personal skills that he's developed, wittingly or unwittingly. A lot of us just, come to it and just tend to have some of these skills and don't even know it. And then others of us, like myself, I have to work on them. I have to hone them and be paying attention, that charitable, like, okay, give the benefit of the doubt. What else could this mean is a question I've used for years when I'm really frustrated about a situation and somebody's doing something and they go, wait a minute, okay, what else could this mean? Maybe they're not actually attacking me or my way of life or whatever it is, but maybe there's something else here that is charitable, and that is a practice I
Yeah.
have to. It's like sharpening the saw or the knife before you go to cut something.
Right.
That's what I think of this.
All right, your formula one more time. Brian's asking for the formula one more time. The equation. It's X equals.
Job skills multiplied by personal skills, and X being the X factor, that little piece that'll push you over the edge.
Okay, that's where you get the X factor. Job skills multiplied by personal skills to the 10th power, because there's more
You got
power in the personal skills for sure. All right, my friend, thank you for coming on board. Appreciate you being part of it today.
That was fun. Thank you.
See you next week. All right, folks, we are out of time for today. We will see you guys tomorrow. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We'll see you.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.